Ronald Reagan. Nancy Reagan grew up in Maryland with her aunt and uncle while her mother pursued acting. She was an actress in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s, and she starred in films such as Donovan's Brain, Night into Morning, and Hellcats of the Navy. She married Ronald Reagan in 1952 and had 2 children. She was the first lady of California when her husband was governor of California from 1967 to 1975. She became the first lady of the United States in 1981. She was criticized early for wanting to change the White House China pattern, and she brought a formality back to the White House, and she founded the Just Say No campaign for drug awareness. She was born Anne Frances Robinson on July 6, 1921. She was born as the only child to Edith Luckett and Kenneth Seymour Robbins. Her mother traveled a lot because she was an actress, and her father was a car salesman. They ended up getting divorced when she was 2, and she then went to live with her aunt for the next 6 years of her life. Her mother, in 1929, married a conservative neurosurgeon who later adopted her and changed her name to Nancy Davis. She always considered him her stepfather, but she considered him her father. She graduated from Smith College in Massachusetts, where she majored in English and drama. She graduated in 1943. After graduating, she held different jobs in Chicago as a sales clerk for Marshall Fields and was also a nurse's aide at a hospital in Chicago. She appeared in feature films and was typecast as the loyal housewife, or responsible mother, or the steady woman because of her conservative values and look. Her first role was in The Doctor and the Girl with Glenn Ford. This was a minor role, but she ended up having major roles. Some other small roles were Night into Morning and A Study of Bereavement, which she really, really liked. That was her favorite one. She also starred in a movie with her husband called Hellcats of the Navy. This is the only film that they starred in together. After her final film, she appeared in the TV dramas such as Wagon and The Tall Men. She retired from acting in 1962, and all she wanted to do was have a very successful, happy marriage and raise her children. She dated many actors, including Clark Gable, Robert Stack, and Peter Lawford. In 1949, she met Ronald Reagan. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild at that time, and their relationship was the subject of many gossip columns because they really didn't go out or go to any nightclubs or anything like that. They pretty much stayed in. Ronald Reagan was skeptical to marry her because he had a very painful divorce from his first wife, Jane Wyman, in 1948. Ronald Reagan and Nancy Davis married on March 4th, 1952. They had a simple ceremony in, I guess, at the Little Brown Chapel in Los Angeles. It was a small ceremony to avoid the press because they just didn't really want to draw attention. They had 2 children together, Patricia Ann Reagan and Ronald Prescott Reagan. Patricia Ann later became Patty Davis. That was her screen name. She was also a stepmother to Ronald Reagan's children from his first marriage, and their names were Maureen Reagan and Michael Reagan. Nancy Reagan's relationship with her children was very rocky. They had many falling outs throughout the years, and they ended up actually reconciling whenever President Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they ended up coming together. As the First Lady of California, she caused controversy when she did not want to move her family into the governor's mansion because she said it was a fire trap. So they ended up renting a house in a very wealthy neighborhood in Bel Air, and people viewed this as she was very snobby because she didn't want to do that, but she thought it was for the good of the family. The residence was paid for by family and not, it was paid for by the family. In 1967, she was appointed by her husband to the California Arts Commission, and 1 year later she was named LA Times Woman of the Year, stating that she was the model First Lady. As First Lady, she visited veterans, the elderly, handicapped, and worked with a number of charities. They held dinners for POWs and Vietnam War vets while in office as Governor and First Lady. The First Lady of the U.S., she was First Lady from 1981 to 1989. extensive reno was paid for by private donations. And she was also known for her classy, glamorous fashion style. And they said her style sense was favorable to Jacqueline Kennedy. Her inaugural gown cost $10,000, while her entire inauguration wardrobe totaled over $25,000. She often wore red, saying it was a pick-her-up color. She wore it so often that they ended up naming the fire engine red shade Reagan Red. There was also major controversy over her ordering a new full-service china set that totaled $209,000 during an economic recession, and she was said to be out of touch with the American public. She launched the Just Say No campaign for drug awareness in 1982. This was her primary project and major initiative as First Lady. She traveled all over the U.S. internationally visiting drug rehab centers. In 1985, she expanded the campaign to the international level by inviting all the First Ladies from several different nations to the White House to attend a conference on drug abuse. In 1988, she became the first Lady to be invited to address the United Nations General Assembly, where she spoke on drug trafficking, laws, and addiction. Though she was a